So I'm going to be showing you guys on how to measure an animal pelt for taxidermy. So if animal pelts aren't your thing, I'm going to suggest to swipe away. So this is my horse pelt and her form is supposed to be here tomorrow, so I need to soak up the leather so I can measure it and I can get working on her. So I'm starting by making a nice lukewarm bath for her. Side note, this pelt is huge. Adding about half a cup or so of salt. Alright, now this is the scary part. There's always a chance that the pelt will disintegrate, but we'll never know until we soak it. Now this is a fantastic tan and the girl did pay a lot of money to have it done, so I'm really not worried about it, but just always remember that when buying pelts. She didn't disintegrate. Now I'm gonna drain it, and that murky stuff is the extra oils. So I just drained the excess water out and stuck her in this trash bag, and now I'm gonna let her sit in the fridge for about 24 hours. Oh my god, guess what just got here? It's the form for my horse. Ah! Let's open them up. So you may be wondering why it's in two boxes. Well, his head's in there and his neck is in there. So let's unbox the neck first. Oh man. And the head, also large. Oh my. I know I probably seem like a complete psycho for how excited I am over a foam horse head, but I mean, come on, dude, like. So I just took all the protective stuff off of her face, and oh my god, look how cool this is. I also got these elk eyes since they don't make horse eyes. Not 100% in love with them yet, but I'll keep looking. So stay tuned for more of my horse.
House in New Orleans they call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. In God I know I'm one.
So why am I chopping up a horse mannequin? Well, first off, there was a lot of anatomical issues with this horse. Things like the jaw was far too big, and this neck is, well, horse people would know. This is also just a generic horse, so the skin really isn't one size fits all, and the mare I'm working on was actually pretty small. Like, so small, this is what I took out of her neck. Almost 5 inches. So I just did another test fit of the skin and it seems to fit pretty alright. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take foam and start foaming these pieces together. After these two pieces are foamed together, I'm gonna start worrying about her bad conformation and fix that up. And for those who think that her face is too long, I actually measured the pelt from the tip of her nose to the corner of the eye and made the form the exact measurement. Foam horse update. So I'm currently foaming in an esophagus because the form didn't have one. As you can see here, I started building a new top line. It looks a lot better than it did before. I'm foaming her head together, and here I added a little bit more extra meat that I will sand down, and it'll hopefully look a lot less skinny. And a little tip here, I am working with a 2-part polyurethane foam. And to get a shape, I actually hold my hand over a trash bag and kind of shape it as it expands. So that's pretty cool. I test fitted the pelt, so if pelts aren't your thing, click away. So she is starting to come along a little bit. Now when I did add the esophagus, it added some extra length here, so this is why the skin is all wrinkled like this. I just ordered a lighter and bigger eye, so rest assured those will be fixed. Just a little bit more work on the form, so stay tuned. So since I'm getting closer to finishing up this mount, I am going to finish up
her nostrils. I don't like closed nostrils in my taxidermy, so I already opened them up, and now we're gonna add some cartilage. So I started by cutting out a slot for the cartilage to go into, because you are gonna see this through the nose. Now the secret here is milk cartons. That's right, they have the perfect cartilage texture. And I'm gonna paint it pink. I'm gonna spray the insides of the nose brown so you don't see that yellow foam color. And another magic trick is yarn. I'm gonna use the fibers of the yarn to create some fake veins. After I have the veins placed where I like them, I'm gonna seal it with some Mod Podge. I mean, that looks pretty legit if you ask me. And just like that, we have some pretty convincing looking nose cartilage. And once the skin is actually wrapped inside of the foam, it's gonna look even that more realistic. It seems that I might have blown some minds that taxidermy is not a shriveled up head on your wall. That in fact, all it is a foam mannequin with the leather placed over top. And a lot of people thought that the real skull was underneath. Well, in fact, back in the day, it was, and I have something to show you. So this is my fringe-eared oryx mount from 1905. I mean, I think this is personally way cooler looking than a foam mannequin. So as you can see here and around here, some of the clay that was taken off is still left over, so that's what they'd use to build up some of the facial muscle. And in here you can actually still see some of the wood wool left. This is what they mainly would have used here to fill out the neck area. And as you can see, they used some wood to build out the cartilage of the nose and framed out the neck. And better yet, the guy I bought this off of thought it was junk. It would have been such a shame if this piece of history was wasted. I'm going to show you guys how I make my ears for my taxidermy animals. So as you can see, the ear has already been separated, and I'm just going to open it up a little bit more. I'm then going to take my Dremel tool and shave down the cartilage until the ear is nice and smooth. I also probably should have worn a mask. Now I'm going to take my Bondo. This is what I use to shape the ears. I did trace the ear so I would know approximately how much Bondo to put in each. And now we're just about ready to put the Bondo in the ear. All I need is my cream hardener. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to shape that ear and make sure to use reference. A little bit of grooming is required to get those hair patterns just right. And just like that, we have a horse ear. 2 horse ears, actually. Look how cute they are. Her ears are so small. I'm going to show you guys how I finish up the noses on my taxidermy animals. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull out that extra nose leather that was tucked into the mannequin. Now I'm doing this to expose the inner leather because I will be applying glue to it. Next up, I'm going to be adding clay to the mannequin just to define the edges of the nostrils a little better. Then I take my hide paste and I'm going to brush it all over the inside of that nose skin. I'm gonna say it, the glue looks like snot. I'm then gonna tuck that nose leather back into her nostril. I'm then gonna tuck that leather right where it needs to go to make it look like a real nostril. Now that clay is coming in handy and I can make that nostril look any way I want. To make sure that nose dries tight against the mannequin, I'm going to tuck plastic bags in it. And now we wait for it to dry. Her nose is starting to look so cute. So we have something to tell you. She is pretty darn real. Yep. Oh, but you said it's on a mannequin, so this must be a horse statue. So it's real horse skin, which has been tanned to leather and placed over foam mannequin. Like this. So this is the horse pelt. A lot of people seem to freak out over it, even though this horse did die of natural causes. This is the pelt that is currently mounted on the form. Real horse, 100% horse. So the purpose of that form was to make her look less deflated and look like an alive horse again. I do think some of you were just trying to say that she looks alive, but I genuinely do think some people did not think this was a real horse. So I just wanted to clear that up. This is taxidermy, and against what a lot of people think, it's not a dried up head on your wall, but simply a skin placed over a mannequin. Today's the day that I'm gonna put together my horse. After I have her all clayed up, I'm gonna add a lot of hide paste. I then place the hide on the form and taxi the skin into place. And then I tuck the lips into the mannequin. Then a much needed cup of coffee to keep myself alive, as well as BuzzFeed Unsolved to keep my sanity, which I don't think I have. One of the last steps is sewing her up. Yes, I use fishing line to sew. So satisfying. Look at that cute forelock. We're almost finished, so I'm gonna remove that skin from the back of the mount. And she's coming along quite nicely. She certainly is not finished yet, but I'll be working on her for the next couple of days, making sure she turns out absolutely perfect. It's time to do some finishing details on my horse mount. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean off any of the extra clay that was left on her eye. Then sculpt a little more detail into the tear ducts, and fill in any of the gaps of her eyes with epoxy. Then I'm going to remove that plastic out of her nose and stick my finger up it to sculpt that epoxy in to make her nose nice and smooth. Now comes for the color. I am actually going to be using some pastels. And to get that pigment, I'm going to scrape down the pastels on sandpaper. To keep her eyes clean, I use Silly Putty. Pretty freaky. Now comes the part where you question, am I watching a makeup channel or a taxidermy channel? Setting spray? No. Workable fixative. Now for my favorite part, to add the dewdrops and wetness to her eyes. Video's up now. I'm going to show you guys how I take my eyes to a next level of realism with Mod Podge. Did I say it right? Mod Podge. I'll apply my super glossy Mod Podge to the tear duct and right at the edge of that eye. I'm also going to be adding some dewdrops to the eyelashes. I do this by just running the brush over the eyelashes and it creates tiny little dew droplets. Repeat on the other side. And I'm also going to add some condensation to that nose. Look how easy that was. Give it a minute and it'll turn into little droplets. Then I'm going to repeat on the other nostril. And for the Windex, time to clean her eyes. So I'm going to first go in with a Windex soap Q-tip. This here is probably the most satisfying part to me. Then go in with a dry Q-tip to make sure there's no streaks. And here's your finished horse eye. She just has to dry for another week, and then I'll post the finished product. So some of you guys were wondering what these pieces are on my horse. So this piece of taxidermy is in her final stages of drying, and this is something we do to prevent something called drumming. A lot of you thought that these were staples, which is a pretty good guess, but it's actually a T-pin. So as you can see, all of these foam pieces are pretty much symmetrical on the horse, and there's a reason for that. So these pieces are basically helping to define her muscle lines. Now, if I don't do this, chances are the skin is going to dry away from the form and you're going to lose that muscle tone, plus you're going to have a really weird feeling to the skin. I have her ears drying as well. This just makes sure that they dry nice and straight. Yes, that's Paw Patrol. I had to do some sewing to her forehead, so this just ensures that my stitches are nice and flat against her head. Letting this piece dry at its own pace is super important to ensure that this mount comes out absolutely perfect.
Walking down 29th and Park, I saw you in another's arms. Only a month we've been apart. You look happier. Saw you walk inside a bar. You said something to make you laugh. I saw that both your smiles were twice as wide as ours. Yeah, you look happier, you do. Ain't nobody hurt you like I hurt you. Ain't nobody love you like I do.
No, I don't think so. It's the way it is, you know. Everything must come to an end. The drip finally stops. See you on the other side. Oh, Bones,
Baby,
no.
you look happier.
There is no other side.
You do.
This is it.
My friends told me one day I'll feel it.